Imagine an animal so peaceful, so universally beloved, that even crocodiles seem to respect it. Meet the capybara, the world's largest rodent, and perhaps the most relaxed creature you'll ever encounter. Now, these gentle giants aren't just big, they're remarkably calm, spending their days lounging by water, surrounded by friends, seemingly without a worry in the world. Tonight we'll discover what makes capybaras so special, how they've mastered the art of getting along with nearly everyone, and why they might just be nature's perfect example of living in harmony. So settle in, get comfortable, and let's spend some time with these wonderful animals. Welcome back to Sleepy Sycamore, where we explore the peaceful wonders of the natural world. Let's start by getting to know our friend, the capybara. Picture, if you will, a creature about the size of a large dog, maybe 4 feet long and weighing anywhere from 70 to over 140 pounds. They have this wonderfully barrel-shaped body, covered in coarse brownish fur that's perfectly designed for their semi-aquatic lifestyle. Their faces are something special. They have these small, gentle eyes, rounded ears that sit high on their heads, and the most endearing blunt snout you've ever seen. There's a kindness in their expression, isn't there? A sort of permanent contentment that's quite rare in the animal kingdom. Now here's what's fascinating. Capybaras are rodents, part of the same family that includes mice and squirrels and guinea pigs. But they've taken the rodent blueprint and scaled it up magnificently. They're the largest rodents on Earth, and they wear that title beautifully. You see, they have those characteristic rodent features, those continuously growing front teeth that they need to keep worn down by gnawing on grasses and aquatic plants. But unlike their smaller cousins, capybaras have evolved to be almost entirely aquatic, spending most of their time in and around water. Their scientific name, Hydrochaeris hydrochaeris, literally means water pig, and that tells you so much about how they live. These animals are native to South America, found throughout much of the continent in countries like Brazil, Venezuela, Colombia, and Argentina. Anywhere there's water and grass, you might find capybaras, living their best lives in marshes, rivers, lakes, and flooded grasslands. Let's talk about how these magnificent creatures have adapted so perfectly to their watery world. You see, evolution has been very kind to the capybara, giving them exactly what they need to thrive between land and water. Those eyes and ears and nostrils I mentioned, they're all positioned high on their heads, which means capybaras can submerge almost their entire body while still being able to see, hear, and breathe. Isn't that clever? It's like nature gave them their own built-in snorkel system. And their feet are wonderful examples of adaptation. Capybaras have slightly webbed toes, which makes them excellent swimmers. When you watch them glide through the water, there's such grace there, such ease. They can stay submerged for up to 5 minutes if they need to, holding their breath while they hide from predators or just enjoy the coolness of the water. On land, those same feet spread wide to distribute their weight, preventing them from sinking too deeply into the muddy ground they love so much. Now here's something that might surprise you. That coarse fur of theirs isn't just for show. It dries remarkably quickly, which is essential when you're constantly moving between water and land. The hairs are long and sparse, almost bristle-like, and underneath there's very little underfur. This means they don't get waterlogged the way a furry animal with dense undercoat might. And here's the interesting part. They don't have much body fat for insulation, which is why you'll often see them basking in the sun, warming themselves after a swim. They're solar-powered, in a way. Their digestive system is equally remarkable. Capybaras are hindgut fermenters, which means they have an enlarged cecum where bacteria help break down the tough cellulose in the grasses they eat. But they've developed a rather unusual habit to make the most of their food. They practice something called coprophagy, eating their own droppings. Now, I know that might sound unpleasant, but there's real wisdom in it. You see, the first time food passes through, those bacteria in the cecum produce nutrients that the capybara can't fully absorb yet. So by eating those special soft pellets, usually in the morning, they get a second chance at all those vitamins and proteins. Nature wastes nothing, does it? Let's journey now to where you'd find these gentle giants in the wild. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine yourself in the Pantanal of Brazil, the world's largest tropical wetland. The sun is warm on your shoulders, and before you stretches a landscape of seasonal floodplains, dotted with palm trees and patches of open water that gleam in the afternoon light. And there, at the water's edge, is a group of capybaras, what we call a herd. The llanos of Venezuela and Colombia are another capybara paradise. These vast grassland plains flood during the rainy season, creating temporary lakes and marshes that the capybaras absolutely love. During the wet season, food is abundant, and you might see large groups of 20, 30, even 40 capybaras gathered together, grazing peacefully on the lush grasses. Then, as the dry season comes and the waters recede, these groups congregate around the remaining water sources, sometimes gathering in even larger numbers. In Argentina's Esteros del Iberá, another wetland wonderland, capybaras live among floating islands of vegetation, caimans basking on muddy banks, and thousands of bird species. If you were there at dawn, you'd see them emerging from the water where they've spent the night, shaking off the droplets, ready to spend the day grazing in the safety of their group. But capybaras aren't just limited to these famous wetlands. They're remarkably adaptable, and you can find them in rainforest rivers, in seasonally flooded forests, even in agricultural areas where they've learned to coexist with humans, sometimes to the farmers' dismay as they sample cultivated crops. They need two things, really: water to escape into and grass to eat. Give them that, and capybaras will make themselves at home. Now, let's talk about something truly special: the capybara's social nature and their remarkable ability to get along with seemingly everyone. You see, capybaras are highly social animals. They live in groups, typically ranging from 10 to 20 individuals. Though, as I mentioned, during the dry season when water sources shrink, you might find groups of 100 or more gathered together. There's usually one dominant male, several females, their young, and subordinate males. The dominant male has the prime territory, usually the best access to water and grazing. And within these groups, there's such harmony. They're not aggressive animals. Conflicts are rare, and when they do occur, they're usually resolved through vocalizations or posturing rather than fighting. The dominant male might chase off a subordinate, but it's all quite civilized. They communicate with each other through a range of sounds: purrs when they're content, barks to alert the group to danger, whistles between mothers and pups. There's a constant, gentle conversation happening in a capybara herd. But here's where it gets truly wonderful. Capybaras have this extraordinary tolerance for other species. You've probably seen those photos online, haven't you? Capybaras with birds perched on their backs, monkeys sitting on their heads, even cats curling up against them. This isn't just internet fiction. It's genuinely how capybaras are. Scientists have observed wild capybaras allowing birds to land on them to pick off ticks and insects, entering into those mutually beneficial relationships we call symbiosis. The birds get an easy meal, and the capybara gets pest control. Everybody wins. And it's not just birds. Capybaras have been seen coexisting peacefully with caimans, those South American relatives of alligators. Now, caimans will occasionally prey on young or vulnerable capybaras, so this isn't a perfect friendship. But adult capybaras seem to recognize which caimans are threats and which are simply sharing the same water source. There's a kind of mutual respect there, a recognition of boundaries. How remarkable is that? Let me tell you about their daily life, because there's something deeply peaceful about the capybara routine. They're crepuscular, which means they're most active during the dawn and dusk hours when the temperature is cooler. If you were to spend a day with a capybara herd, you'd see them emerge in the early morning light, moving from their sleeping area, which is often in dense vegetation or partially in water, to their grazing grounds. And they graze. Oh, how they graze. Capybaras can eat 6 to 8 pounds of grass per day. They're quite selective, preferring certain types of grasses and aquatic plants, and they'll often graze the same areas repeatedly, keeping the vegetation at just the right height. They're like nature's lawnmowers, but gentle ones. You'd see them moving slowly, methodically, those powerful jaws working steadily, creating paths through the grass that other animals then use. As the day grows warmer, they'll move to the water. Some will submerge completely, with just their eyes, ears, and nostrils above the surface. Others might wallow in the mud along the banks, and this wallowing is important, you see. It helps regulate their body temperature and protects their skin from the intense sun and from insects. There's such contentment in a wallowing capybara. If animals could sigh with happiness, I think that's when capybaras would. Afternoon is siesta time. They'll rest in the shade, sometimes grooming each other, sometimes just sitting close together. Young capybaras might play, chasing each other, or play fighting gently, learning the social skills they'll need as adults. And then, as evening approaches, they'll graze again before finding a safe spot for the night. Let's talk about capybara families, because there's real tenderness there. Females typically give birth once a year after a gestation period of about 5 months. The litter size ranges from 2 to 8 pups, with 4 being pretty common. And these pups, they're born remarkably well developed. Within hours of birth, they can walk and swim. Within a week, they're starting to eat grass, though they'll continue nursing for several months. Here's something beautiful. In capybara society, all the adults help look after all the young. This is called communal care, and it means a pup might nurse from any lactating female in the group, not just its mother. The whole herd keeps watch, alerts the young to danger, and guides them to safe areas. If you're a young capybara, you're being raised by a village, and isn't that a lovely way to grow up? The pups stay close to their mothers initially, learning what to eat, where the safe spots are, how to respond to alarm calls. Capybaras have predators, you see. Jaguars, anacondas, caimans, and eagles all might prey on them, especially the young ones. So that alarm bark from an adult sends everyone racing for the water, where they're safer. The pups learn quickly. Survival depends on paying attention and staying with the group. Now, let's consider the capybara's role in their ecosystem, because they're more important than you might think. As grazers, they influence the plant communities around them, keeping certain areas well trimmed and creating habitat for other species. Those grazing paths I mentioned become highways for smaller animals. Their droppings fertilize the soil and the water, cycling nutrients back into the environment. And they're prey animals, which means they're an important food source for predators. A healthy capybara population supports jaguars, caimans, and anacondas. They're what ecologists call a keystone species in some areas. Remove them, and the whole system changes. But there's more. Those tick birds and other species that use capybaras as perches or grooming stations, that's biodiversity at work. The capybara's calm tolerance creates opportunities for interspecies interactions that benefit the whole community. They're living examples of coexistence, showing us that there's room in nature for cooperation alongside competition. In some areas, capybaras have even adapted to human-modified landscapes. In Brazil, there are capybaras living in urban parks, coexisting with joggers and picnickers. In agricultural areas, they've learned to navigate between wild spaces and farmland. Now, this isn't always easy. They sometimes damage crops, and humans sometimes see them as pests. But increasingly, people are learning to appreciate these gentle neighbors, finding ways to share space rather than eliminate them. Let me share some truly fascinating facts that show just how special capybaras are. Did you know that their teeth never stop growing? Like all rodents, their incisors grow continuously throughout their lives, which is why they need to constantly gnaw on tough grasses. It's nature's perfect self-sharpening system. And here's something that amazes me. Capybaras can run up to 22 miles per hour when they need to. For such a large, seemingly relaxed animal, they've got surprising speed when danger threatens. But even more impressive, they're faster in water than on land, swimming with powerful strokes and even diving underwater to escape predators. Their scientific name has changed over the years as we've learned more about them. They were once thought to be related to pigs, that water pig name we mentioned. Later, scientists realized they're rodents. Now we know they're actually most closely related to guinea pigs and rock cavies, just much larger versions. In some parts of South America, capybaras have an interesting relationship with the Catholic Church. During the colonial period, capybaras were classified as fish by some missionaries because of their aquatic lifestyle. This meant they could be eaten during Lent and on Fridays when meat was forbidden. Now, any biologist will tell you a capybara is definitely not a fish, but it's a fascinating example of how humans have historically categorized these unusual animals. So what can we learn from capybaras? I think there's real wisdom in their way of living. They've mastered the art of being present, of taking life at a comfortable pace. They don't rush, they don't fight unnecessarily, they don't isolate themselves. They find peace in community, safety in cooperation, and contentment in simple pleasures. A good meal of grass, a cool swim, the warmth of the sun. In a world that often feels rushed and divided, the capybara reminds us that there's value in slowing down, in getting along, in making room for others. They show us that size and strength don't have to mean aggression, that being peaceful isn't the same as being weak. They've survived and thrived not by dominating their environment, but by fitting into it, by being adaptable and tolerant. And perhaps that's why they've captured our hearts so completely. In an age of internet fame, the capybara has become something of an icon of chill, of zen-like calm. But this isn't a modern invention. These animals have been living this way for millions of years, long before we were here to notice and appreciate it. And so we've spent time with the capybara, the world's largest rodent and perhaps its most peaceful soul. From the wetlands of South America to our collective imagination, these gentle giants remind us that there's beauty in simplicity, strength in community, and wisdom in accepting things as they are. Nature has created so many different ways of being, hasn't it? And the capybara's way, calm, social, content, that's one worth paying attention to. Thanks for joining me tonight on Sleepy Sycamore. If you enjoyed this peaceful journey, I'd love to have you back for the next one. Until then, take a lesson from our capybara friends. Slow down, appreciate the simple things, and be kind to those around you. Sleep well, friends.